Hello, boils and ghouls. It's your old pal, Josh Ethier, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And guess what, kiddies? You are now tuned in to PVD Horror Podcast. Pleasant screams.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to PVD Horror. My name is Dave. I'm joined here with my co-host, Brandon. And today we have a very, very special episode that's like really, truly dear to Brandon and I. We have two Rhode Island greats here. We have editors Josh Ethier and Michael Shawver, who are both Rhode Island natives, and they're out there doing big things in the world. And yeah, I mean, just to kind of touch on it, Michael, you're just coming off of the Sinners praise from everybody. Josh, you actually just down here for the Jimmy and Stiggs premiere recently, but you've been in the game doing great things for a while as well. So we are super honored to have you both here. Josh, Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
I'm really
always happy to.
No doubt. So, as Rhode Island natives who have achieved success in the film industry, you both are, you inspire local filmmakers and creators. What key advice can you both share to help them coming from Rhode Island?
Well, I mean, I think Josh is actually the great example of cut as much as you possibly can, do any job you possibly can do, especially in Rhode Island. When I was I went to undergrad at URI, and I think the summer before I came out to California, I was acting in this really low budget thing that no one will ever see because I won't let anybody see it. I was working at Georges of Galilee and Blockbuster Video in Narragansett.
Wow. Okay.
And overnight, I was PAing and camera assisting and anything I could do on this movie called Slether, which I know you've worked with a few of those guys, Josh, back in the day. Just try. At that time, when you're not exposed to filmmaking, you know what an actor is, and you they shoot it on cameras, and you kind of have an idea of a director, but not really. So I think having that education, but just diving into it, and not being afraid, and even after a few features, I was cutting every short that came my way. I was cutting a feature and shorts at the same time, just because I knew I had a lot to learn, and I wanted to reach a certain level. So I think work on as much as you can. I think find the people who you can come up with. If you want to edit, you want to direct, find a writer, find actors, find people. Nowadays, when Josh and I were coming up, there was no YouTube. Or it was so new. So, you could go shoot something in the morning, cut it at night, put it on the next day, and see what response you get. So I think there's so many opportunities now, but it's the hard part is actually going to take those opportunities, and making them happen for yourself. So
yeah, you worked at George's of Galilee.
Mm-hmm.
They used to do these like party, like on the public access, they do like the nightclub programs, and they would show people dancing. So if we were to get some footage from like circa 2006, will we catch you on there?
Maybe. Well, I was working the door
Okay.
for those nights, which I know I'm a very imposing human being, but you might catch me. I haven't checked, but
I was a bouncer when I moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Josh, I can picture that though. You got the
Yeah, I mean, I probably look a little bit meaner than Mike, but I was still a 21-year-old kid with an accent. I was doing a talk at CSU Fullerton last night. I think kids, I don't want to say have it easy, but they have it really good now. Like there's so much access to like filmmaking stuff on YouTube, websites. You can buy LUTs, you can buy sound effects, you can see camera reviews for stuff that you could never afford, and then just rent it for a day. When I was younger, I remember Joe Begas and I would have to drive up to Boston Camera to like grab a rig for the day to shoot like a music video for a local hardcore band. And that was like, we would have to plan that for weeks and weeks and weeks. But now kids you could just go shoot something on your phone and actually have it look really decent.
Yeah.
Like not bad at all. So funny. It was even such like a novel idea 10 years ago that, Park Chan-wook was going to shoot a movie on an iPhone, but now you literally could. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, Sean Baker, Oscar winner, he shot movies on iPhones. It's crazy. But yeah, that's what I did. I came out here and I just started working as much as I could. I moved out here at 21 and just started working on everything I could. I worked for like Adam Green. I worked for Joe Lynch. I worked for their editor. Joe was working for Stuart Gordon. We just saved up every penny we could to try to make a movie, and then went back to Rhode Island to shoot that movie with the guys who made Slither. So that's the lesson, I guess, is find an Anthony Ambrosino and get whatever you can out of it.
Yeah. Now, given that you both grew up on opposite sides of the state, Michael, you were in North Providence, Josh, you were in Coventry. Let's take it back to the Rhode Island roots. What were some of your favorite memories of growing up in Rhode Island?
The beach, the food. The food is might be what I miss the most out of the material things. Good Italian food, pizza. There are spots out here. I found them, but just sort of that. You could go into some random supermarket in the middle of Coventry or Foster, and you get a sub sandwich for $4, and it's got everything you want on it. It's the best thing you've ever had. But the smallness of the state, I think, and the older you get, and the more people you meet, I don't know. There's something about getting away from. There's a level of authenticity and the people are very genuine there. For the most part, they'll tell you exactly how they feel. And there's a sense of sort of honesty, I think, in everyday moments, but also like a neighbor thing. Like someone will tell you to fuck off, but then help you shovel your driveway the next day. I mean, and but out here it takes a little time, but it is possible to find your found family and people who you can rely on and trust and stuff. But I think for me, and just making movies with my parents' big ass VHS camcorder when I was like 13, 14 years old, and chasing my friends down and making them do take after take of whatever the heck we were trying to make or shoot, and so, I mean, I would like to go back, and I went to school to direct, and I love directing, and I think I want to do that, down the road. So I would love to go shoot a feature in Rhode Island and feature all the incredible locations, architecture, people, culture, all that stuff.
Yeah, when we went to go make Almost Human years ago, it was funny. Everyone was like, you guys made the movie for like 50 grand, but like, how did you get it to look like the 80s? We were like, that's just what Coventry, Rhode Island looks like. You guys, like, it just looks like that, We didn't have to do it. Like, it was very easy to get a Ford from like 1986 and have it drive on set. Super simple. But no, I agree. I miss the food. Like, yeah, like an Italian grinder. They don't do, it's like the subs out here, they're great. They're fine. But the big thing in LA right now is like that Florence sandwich. It's like, oh, it's Italian. It's like, no. I just like oil, vinegar. You got to, it's not the same out here. It's not the same. So I my wife is also from Rhode Island. My best friend is from Rhode Island. So frequently we just cook the things that we want to have anyways, and we'll just do them ourselves out here. But yeah, I miss that. I miss just being able to go for like a walk in the woods growing up on the west side of the state. Just being able to, get lost, in some dark woods really easily. I miss that for sure. But and I also miss the people. Yeah, because California people are very, very different. But I've been out here for almost 20 years now, so I've gotten pretty used to them.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that with the woods, because I think everybody thinks automatically of Rhode Island being, the whole, like as if the whole state's on the ocean. Yeah. But there's a whole but there's a whole nother world. Like I'm not near the ocean, and I know Brandon's not. Like, so when people talk to us about it and they're like, oh, it's so beautiful there, I'm like, yeah, you clearly went to Newport like every other tourist, or but that's not where we are exactly. But yeah, those are,
I mean, go to Beavertail, it's fantastic. But like, you go out to Coventry, it might as well be like South Carolina. It's crazy.
I mean, you guys got freaking desert over there in Coventry, so I mean, you got some sand dunes and all that stuff. So it's got a little bit of mix of topography, I guess you would say. You guys kind of already started to talk about it, but I would love for you guys to kind of expand on this idea of like the difference of like Rhode Island and like what makes it special versus like, other states or areas like LA and stuff like that. Like, how would you guys describe Rhode Island and the Rhode Island people?
honestly, for me, it's really tough to just put the Rhode Island people in words. Anytime I'm trying to share something from Rhode Island, I'm usually sending like a Instagram video or something where it just explains it all,
Yeah.
or back in the day it was some, public access, rest in peace, Judge Caprio.
Yeah.
Mm.
Those crazy things because that used to be on RI public access. But I think that um there's a level of confidence in Rhode Island. I don't know if there's a Napoleon complex going on there, but there's always this kind of feeling of like we got to prove something,
Mm.
and I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this too, Josh, but people ask where I'm from, and I say Rhode Island, about 30 to 40% say, oh, New York,
Yeah.
because they think Long Island, or they think, something like that. So even then it's like, all right, well, I'm going to work even harder, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to put Rhode Island, help, make it be known. I think the biggest thing for me, the culture shock of it all, what was, the size of it, because LA County is bigger than Rhode Island and has 10 times more people. And when you come from a place like that, you sort of speak the same language, even if you're from a different town. It's so small and kind of consolidated in that sense. I think LA gets smaller the more you're here, and the more familiar you get with it. Luckily, I think there's enough transplants that you can usually find some people. The other thing though is with Rhode Island, for the most part, people are there, and that's their life, and they love it, and that's where they're going to be. In LA, it's a lot of people, especially in this industry, who are trying to achieve their own singular vision, and sometimes that can lead them to not form a community, or to make choices that maybe aren't the best for the group or for everybody else. I think it takes a bit of navigating, if anybody plans to come out here, to not just trust everybody, maybe like you would back in Rhode Island or home, but luckily with social media and everything, there's always ways to find the right people, and there's enough people coming in and out all the time that it's really about finding community, for me. But
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, moving out here with, at least first it was one of my buddies was Joe Begas. We moved out together when he was 20, I was 21. And then we had another friend that moved out after us when he came out to visit once, and he was like, holy shit, this is awesome. This is incredible out here. And then, so I've always just like been surrounded by Rhode Islanders, and even just like being in LA, being in my 20s and like dating, it's like, yeah, like, girls out here are fantastic. They're wonderful. And then I married a girl from Rhode Island, that I went to high school with. It's like, it's just such an intrinsic understanding, like the jokes that I make with her, the attitude that I have, the sarcasm that's in our house. It's like, it's very Rhode Island, even if we're in the absolute center of LA. And when she says it's pizza night, it's pizza night, because like back home, it's like the easiest thing in the world. Like you were saying, you throw a rock, you hit a grocery store, and they got a great sandwich, but they also sell pizza. Moving out here and realizing that not all pizza shops sold fries, like my head exploded. I was like, what? How can you? I can't get a toasted Italian, a pizza, and fries. This is ridiculous. I've long thought, like, if I opened up a food truck and it was just Rhode Island shit, that I would make so much money.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you get hot wieners, you get fries, you get 2 slices of pizza, you take a sandwich to go with some pasta, because it's just they're all over the place back home. So that's the thing I had to be careful about going home, is just like eating too much. Food is so. And we've got, he's right. We do have pretty good pizza out here now. We do have some pretty good Italian spots out here now, but like, it's just not quite the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. And then
like my favorite thing back home actually was Greek pizza places.
Yes.
Like we have like a College Street called A1 Pizza, and like that olive oil crust, that like pan style, it's just like, it's burned in my brain. So every time we go home, we have to go to like 2 or 3 different pizza places. Yeah.
So one of the conversations we had recently with a local filmmaker was, obviously being a small state, you can probably imagine some of like the challenges that would come with trying to start a career in filmmaking. But there are some benefits to the state being kind of small. And I was just curious if you guys kind of feel that as well, or if you have any thoughts on that idea.
I will say quickly that when I was back home, I was editing some stuff for a friend. Joe and I were planning on making the move to Los Angeles, and I remember that somebody came to me and they were like, why would you move out there? Like, why don't you stay here and be like a big fish in a little pond? And the idea at the time was that we're not necessarily worried about being little fish. Like, being little fish kind of sounds kind of fun in Los Angeles because you can come out here and like Mike was saying, you can find all these different little, packs of people that are making different kinds of films and sort of move between them in those young ages, like we did with, Adam Green and Joe Lynch. Adam's also a New Englander. So it was like easy to settle into that group. I understood his sense of humor immediately. And they were like, hey, these guys are cool. They want to make movies. So we were able to do that. But there's also nothing wrong with staying home and honing that for, that type of, crowd. I have friends that stayed home and they're graphic designers. Hey, calm down. Graphic designers or photographers back home, guys who shoot wedding videos to do like incredible work. And they've founded like these big creative, almost like empires in Rhode Island. And so it's inspiring to see it at any level. You can, like a buddy who's got a business at home shooting wedding videos, or Mike Shawver, who's likely going to be nominated for an Oscar this year. Like it's awesome that breadth exists in a state so small,
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you for that little shout out there. But I totally agree. And I think the thing is that you can talk about equipment or, big studios or big locations or different things like that, but there's certain things that translate no matter where you are. And first and foremost, good work.
Yeah.
If you do something good that people can relate to and people are affected by and, almost have a relationship with, it doesn't matter if it's a YouTube video, it doesn't matter where you make it or it's a big budget feature, good work is good work, and honest, good art, telling good stories, unique stories, personal stories, that stuff will always translate to wherever. For me, I would love to go, shoot a feature, direct or produce a feature out there, because there's so many amazing benefits. First of all, locations in that state are incredible. Most productions now, they go around the world. They're like, okay, we need this one oceanside location. Like, we're going to go to this state or this country. We need this farmland. We got to go to somewhere else. We need a city. Rhode Island, you're 20 minutes. You're in one place or the other, because and people in Rhode Island, just general people get excited. My mom still texts me about all the movies that shoot out there. From 27 Dresses to the new M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's like, oh, they're shooting this. They're shooting Good Burger at the Friendlies down the street to go to. and it's like, so there's a level, I think, of excitement there. I think it's just different out here because of it's been the industry here forever, and people are used to it, and people are, even less.
We're almost kind of sick of it.
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah. I mean, we need to bring filming back to Los Angeles, but yeah, exactly. So there's a level of excitement there, and even filling a room of extras, or hey, like we can feed you. We can't really, we'll pay you a small rate or whatever, but there's way more excitement there. Getting locations, doing that. It feels like there are less restraints when it comes to that thing. For me, when I came out, a lot of it had to do with the two things were one, education and learning how these things were made. I applied to USC. It was the only school I applied to because I made that life deep down decision that I'm going to go to Los Angeles in the fall of 2008, no matter what, sleep on floors, do whatever I have to do. But I just applied to USC and I wrote this essay that I don't even know where it came from, but it was just confident that I was going to do this and change the world and whatever. And they somehow let me in. But the feeling I got when I got to that school and was surrounded in this town by people who spoke my language, I was a kid in high school that like I knew every movie, every actor in every movie, I had encyclopedic knowledge of it, and people would look at me cross-eyed, because like what are you talking about? And we didn't really share that passion. So, sort of finding a place where I felt like I belonged and I felt like I was in the right place for that point in my life. Like I was in the exact right place I needed to be at that time because of where I was, what I wanted to learn, who I wanted to meet, and where I wanted to get to. So, I think there is a world of getting the best of all of that stuff.
Now, you touched on like conversations with your mom. In what ways have both of your families encouraged your dreams entering the industry?
My parents are crazy supportive in regards that they just wanted me to get the hell out of high school. They were like, if you get out of high school, you can do whatever you want. So that was like the low bar that was hit for me, which was great. Like I look at editing as though it's like a trade. You come out, you do your time, do an internship somewhere, you put your hours in, and then you get a union job. It's kind of like my father being a carpenter, same vibe. So I moved out here within like 2 years graduating high school, with my buddy. We drove across country with a Hyundai Elantra packed together with like a small TV and like 2 DVD collections. Apparently at the same time you did, Michael. I moved out here September 3rd, 2008.
Oh wow, no way. Yeah, I was I got here August 18th, and mine was a Corolla. I packed up a Corolla and drove across the country. So
Nice.
Yeah, but I remember that Joe and we literally planned our move out for it was September 3rd at the Cinerama Dome at the ArcLight in Hollywood was the screening of The Fly on 70 millimeter with Cronenberg and Howard Shore here because they were launching The Fly opera in Paris. So we drove across country knowing that by September 3rd we have to be in LA because we bought this tickets to this movie. But yeah, my parents were crazy supportive. They have no idea how movies get made. They had no idea what was ahead of me in the industry or anything like that. But they were just like, you've been doing this for a long time. I'm sure it'll be okay. Give it a shot, And so they, put a little gas in the car and said, go on out. So I'm happy too. I think I was probably about a month out here when I called my mom and I was like, I haven't found a job. I'm almost out of money. I think I got to come home. And she's like, well, at least you gave it a shot. And then it was like, I got up like a call waiting on the other line. And it was a guy calling to offer me a job bouncing downtown. And that was the last real job I ever had. Because after that, I was working as an AE. After that, I was cutting. It was like probably only 3 years after that, I cut my first feature with Joe. And then we got to go to Toronto and Midnight Madness. So that's like awesome. Stranger shit has happened. And I think that's the other thing too. I think folks in Rhode Island tend to know like kids don't really want to stick around, or if they do, they'll go to Providence, they'll go to Boston, or go to like Hartford or something, or New York City, as far as you could possibly go to New York City. So I find that a lot of people, when we would go home, they would be like genuinely excited to see us, parents, friends growing up, would be like, oh, you live out in Los Angeles now, and like, asking a lot of great questions and just generally being supportive. It's just like a great place to grow up.
Yeah. Josh, just really quick, I wanted to share too, when we got the opportunity to meet your dad, when we did the Jimmy and Sticks screening, and your dad was amazing. Like he was so proud, and he shared with us a story about just you kind of like, just how invested in like he'd got a new computer or something along those lines. And just like, he was just talking about your dedication and just like how, I don't know, he just, everything about the way he was talking just like kind of expressed how proud he was of you. So that was like really cool.
I can hear it now in his voice going, he got this computer. And it's like, when I go home, I listen to my father-in-law and my dad. My dad would come over to see all of us, and my father-in-law is also like a born and bred Rhode Islander. And like my dad was trying to tell him, they were talking about like cowboy coffee. And Michaela and I, we live out in LA. We've been out here forever, but there's always these glimpses of like Rhode Islandism in everyday life. And we saw both of our fathers talking about cowboy coffee. And to separate the grinds in the coffee, my dad said, you got to put the raw egg in it. And my father-in-law goes, oh, the raw. Yeah, I've heard about that, the raw egg. And we're just like, I can't believe that this is a conversation that two grown men are having with this fucking accent. Oh, yeah. Never too far away from it,
Yeah, totally. My family's super supportive. I think around in that kind of interesting time where I was graduating college and then figuring out the next steps, they were always supportive, but I think there was a level of concern for them because of this whole idea of job security and this whole idea of my dad would say, hey, like, why don't you look for an office job? Why don't you do that? And it took a little time, but eventually you saw that there was no budging, and like there was something I needed to do regardless for myself. So and then now it's like I had to tell my dad, you got to stop telling everybody that we walk by in the street, or every waiter that would see, or bartender, like what I do. I'd like to just to have a moment where it's just me and my family. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're super insanely proud, and my whole family are teachers.
Okay.
And so, my sister teaches fourth grade. She taught, first before. And, when Black Panther came out, all the kids were like going crazy, and she sent me videos. So it's really good to still have that connection, and there's nothing like having there's this saying that I heard that I really like, which is people will always treat you how they did when they had the most power over you. And that kind of sounds, kind of weird for a family thing, but I'm the youngest. I have an older sister. And so it doesn't matter what I do, what I've done, who I know, they still come here and my things aren't organized in the right place, or my parents come and visit and rearrange my kitchen, or are you sure you know how to do this or how to get that? So it's just this really it's a really great, humbling, bring me back to never let me get too sure of myself or too overly confident in myself, kind of bringing me back to that humility. And I think that humility is and I could tell Josh is this way too. But some of the things, like I was saying, like where good work will translate, there's things that you can learn how to cut things creatively. You can learn the programs. You can study movies ad nauseum. You can network like crazy. But being a good person, treating people right, working hard, those are the things that you can control, and those are the things that will bring success and more success. And one thing I learned big time from Ryan Coogler is, he might be the smartest person that I've ever met. But he walks into every single room like he doesn't know anything. So he can learn. So sorry about that. So he can learn from everybody else. And that's how we approach all the movies we do. I mean, at the end of these movies, we're sitting there like, including Sinners, a week before, like, do we do our job? Like, is anybody going to like this movie? What is this? But I think having that mentality allows you to always find the best version of the movie, or find the truth in it when you're really honest with yourself and keeping each other honest. So I think that sort of that those qualities that I was able to learn from my family and from my upbringing in Rhode Island. I think Ryan recognized that when I met him in film school, and I acted on it. I helped him production design a short that he was doing. He saw me late one night after class, and he's like, how to production design, right? I'm like, yeah, totally. And he's like, all right, well, I need this, 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 and this. And I was like, all right, cool. When are you shooting? And he's like, 6:30 tomorrow morning. I'm like, okay. So then I go home and I panic. But I figured it out. And and then on set, like I helped light, I helped camera, I helped everything that I possibly could. And then 2 days later, he chose me to be one of his editors for a bigger project at school. And then that was the first time we worked together, and I've cut everything he's done, since then. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's getting into editing specifically. You both have worked on some amazing films. We're mentioning the Ryan Coogler films, but Josh, like, Hansel and Gretel. I mean, there's so many like films that you both have worked on collectively that are just like outstanding films. But I feel like editing is such like a criminally not discussed by the casual viewer process, right? And but I also think it is the thing that like makes a film. Ultimately, it's like the thing that makes it the most enjoyable. If it's poorly edited, people leave there feeling confused or like, oh, that movie dragged or whatever. So like you guys are so responsible for the pacing, for, so much of the film. Is there any examples for people who maybe don't give editing the credit you feel it deserves, of films where you think like the editing was top notch and perhaps even like made the film like what we know it today? Do you guys have any like examples of that you could think of?
So it's great.
Oh yeah,
movie called,
actually.
So I was going to say I saw a great movie called Companion this year, which I want to get into, because absolutely brilliant editing.
Yeah.
Like so efficient. The breadcrumbing and storytelling in the editing is just like next level. So we can geek out on that later or whatever. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I jumped in.
No, it's all good. I was gonna say, this is actually I spoke to some students last night at a college, and this is actually one of those questions they asked. And actually, I was going to say the thing that makes the movie a movie is editing.
Yeah.
It's like that's like the art form that's totally unique to this, you know. But my fervent example for two things is that if you want to learn how to cut an action movie, you just have to watch the opening of The Matrix. That's all you got to do.
Oh.
If you can understand the first 10 minutes of The Matrix, the whole Trinity sequence at Heart of the City Motel, like the breakdown of shot selection, how to production design something, how to light something, how to stage something, what, you know, eye line is, how to cut something and compress time and control time. Like it's all in that first 10 minutes of that movie. And every time I watch it, I'm just like gobsmacked by how incredible that is. But then I would also say, if you want to learn about cutting dialogue, there's no one better than Sally Menke. And I would say just watch the opening of Inglourious Bastards, like the just complete disregard for continuity. It's fully emotional, fully rhythmic, you know, shot selection, inline cuts. Like she was absolutely one of the best to ever do it. And every time, I just recently watched that movie again for about a week ago because we were referencing out another film I was working on. And I was just, again, I'm always just floored by that work. And, you know, thankfully, as, you know, living out here and being a small community of editors we are, you know, Michael and I are both in the American Cinema Editors, so we have certain outreach to certain members. So like, I remember getting lunch with Fred Raskin and just like asking him a bunch of questions because he worked for Sally before he was Quentin's editor, and just like his Quentin stories are incredible, none of which I can repeat here. But I would say those are the two examples for me. And also, if like me today, you're working on a scene that features a lot of music, you could look to, you know, the film Sinners and just see how music and performance can be cut and controlled and moved around. Yeah, I was literally thinking about it about an hour ago. It's like, man, okay, so yeah, there's a couple good examples in Sinners I can pull from having seen that on a 150-foot screen. You know, that I can pull that up.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, those are great examples. I think what's interesting, you know, and I always say the same thing where, you know, editing is the only discipline in filmmaking that didn't exist before movies. And the juxtaposition of moving images to create emotion is what it is. And, you know, we're the first audience. But the interesting thing is, you know, our job is to make people feel the most, but to be invisible. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is why most people don't know, because the best editing, you don't even think about the editing, you know, whereas you see a beautiful shot, you're like, wow, that's a beautiful shot. Or you see a great performance, you're like, wow, that's a great performance. You know, the cuts are to keep you engaged, you know, and I think especially with genre movies, with horror, you know, I found on these, and I learned from some great filmmakers, you know, Krasinski on A Quiet Place 2, and I did a movie called Abigail, which I think is hugely underrated with Radio Silence guys, and those guys.
In my house.
I think
any movie that drops a Danzig needle drop, Friends for Life.
Friends for Life.
I'll tell you, that was a battle. That was actually the one of the first options that we wanted, the directors and I, and we were fought on that until the very, 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 very end, and we just stuck to it. And then at the end, the studio was like, "Yeah, you know what? This actually does work." So,
and you guys had Ben Zales on that as a music editor, right?
Oh, I love Ben. You know Ben?
He works on Companion. I love Ben.
Dude,
he's not a Rhode Islander, so we don't have to talk about him. You know,
I actually just saw him the other day because I'm on the Warner Brothers lot, and he's mixing something or working on something that's mixing. Like one of the best music editors out there, and but also just a great dude. Like, you just want to hang out with him, and that's what you kind of find. The higher up you get is like you know, there are the assholes in every walk of life, but you know, typically the people who have worked, like, you know, this industry is kind of like a pyramid where everybody's at the bottom trying to pull each other down and get their own footing, but it's the people that help each other up and the people that you know, work together to get there that I think, you know, and people, you know, people stay that way. You know, and even, you know, judging editing, it's hard, you know, because you get lost in it. I mean, I was asked what are the best edited movies, and I mean, I said Muppet Treasure Island, but that's just because it's one of my favorite movies. You know, and the something like for example, Moulin Rouge, right? That movie is so extreme in its cutting and its style and its sort of place within its own reality, but you still feel for all the characters and you care, you know. And I think finding, and Josh said it, like cutting for emotion, and it's not just the actors and characters' emotion back and forth. It's the relationship the audience has with the movie and the emotion that you're bringing out of them, knowing when to have a quiet moment with the character just staring at a wall or staring out the window, may seem on the surface like, okay, that's just a moment and they're slowing it down and but that's actually the moment where the audience is going to take their own experiences, thoughts, hopes, their own hopes and fears, put them into the character, and then kind of bond them even more, for each moment. And, I think the truly it's just the honesty that you have with yourself, with your taste, the honesty that you bring to the team and the collaboration.
Yeah.
Because there's some fear to that, even at the biggest levels, there are people that are afraid to give their opinion or afraid to go for it and do it. But it's really those people that if you just believe in yourself and take the risks, um, I think it's important. And editing is really just what information are you giving the audience and how are you delivering it to them?
Yeah.
And I think, finding what's unique to those characters in the story, and pushing it with a level of confidence in that direction, because one of the paradoxes of filmmaking is the more specific you make something, the more universal it actually becomes. And if you try to please all the quadrants and all the different people you just get a broad thing that doesn't really hit home for anybody. But it's those human moments, relationships. People remember relationships more than they'll remember the names of your characters,
Yeah.
things like that. So I think, anything that speaks to the human experience and the audience can relate to and be engaged in, I think it'll find its audience no matter what the subject matter or topic is.
Yeah.
Best thing you can do is work on your taste as a filmmaker and watch good movies, watch trash movies, watch movies. Just make sure you're constantly watching movies. I'll go from like a 71-minute Hungarian film from 1966, and then the next day be watching like Street Fighter with like Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it's important to like understand that dichotomy and see what works in certain situations and form your own opinions and form your own tastes, because like basically an editor is kind of like a DJ. Like you tune into a DJ because you like what they play, you like what they listen to, you like the opinions they have on things. So if you have an editor who loves film and really like eats, sleeps, lives and breathes film and brings that to everything that they work on and really tries to go for that maximum cinematic experience, you'll feel it. And you find those filmmakers, those DPs, production designers, actors, directors, writers, producers, editors, all of us that do that. And thankfully, when you get enough of those people together, you can create something really special. And that's the aim every time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a great, sharpening your taste, understanding that, sometimes when I speak to a class, I ask, raise your hand if you have good taste. And some people don't. And it's like, well, you should, like, everybody needs to, because it is your taste. And, I guess a specific example for me that kind of changed how I looked at editing and filmmaking in general was Memories of Murder. Have you seen that by Junho Bong? It's
One of the
unbelievable.
greats.
Like there's a level of comedy to it. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's so good. It's a true story about these guys investigating a killer, and it's so poetic but dark but funny. And I would just say if for any filmmaker, if you watch something and you don't understand it, dive into it and watch it again, stop it, analyze all the cuts, analyze the choices that they made, how long they stay on characters, the shot selections, the
Mhm.
shapes of the scenes. Because and that opened up my world to more Korean cinema, and they do such an incredible job of the space in between, right? Like the space in between the lines, the space in between the action bits and the exciting bits. There's a poetry and a story that's being told there through the building of this stuff,
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, why am I feeling this way when I'm just looking at shots of a field? But
Mhm.
Mm.
but it worked for whatever it is, and always being open to learning from things that inspire you and trying to achieve that.
And seeking out things to inspire you, like still going looking for them. Don't I have a lot of buddies now who are like probably in their 40s. They're getting up and they're like, yeah, there's just not any really good movies lately. There's no good bands anymore, and like all this stuff. And it's like they're still out there. You just gotta find them. You just have to
find it.
Keep that part of your brain open and go looking for new things like all the time, and keep honing it down. Also, Memories of Murder, like maybe that and like 12 Angry Men. If you want to learn how to block a movie, those are the two movies that you need to watch. You want to understand staging and a master shot.
Yeah.
Memories of Murder, 12 Angry Men. Like those are the only two things you need. Maybe pepper in a little bit of Princess Bride, which is fantastic at that.
Now, Michael, you just brought up Companion, and that's definitely one of the top films of the year for me. Josh, what was going through your head as you were working on that project with AI and robots going on in the world now, DoorDash delivering food? Like, what was going on with your head, like now working with like this creative, character that was just a robot, an android that kind of just formed relationships? What was that like?
I mean, I should also quickly shout out as well too that there was a co-editing with Brett Bachman, who's a good friend of mine, and incredible editor, great guy. He was having twins, so he asked me to cover for him, and I feel bad because I Mike will completely understand this. I got to do all the fun stuff. Brett was on through like shooting an assembly, and then he started a director's cut, but he had his two beautiful boys, and I got to come in for director's cut, producer's notes, studio notes, test screenings. Like I did all the fun stuff. But thankfully Brett was able to come back, and together we were there for that last week to lock it down. But we never looked at it as though she was like a robot. That was the whole thing, was like I think everybody in the room, we were always just thinking about it as though it was a story about Iris's empowerment. The funniest thing in the movie is that his fuckbot breaks up with him, and that is like that's the scene that's like that's what the movie is about. And there's so many different parallels there, like the story of Harvey Guillen and Lucas Gage, like their whole thing is like a parallel of Iris's relationship with Josh. Like they have a healthy relationship that is also ruined by Josh. There's so many other things going on there. I mean, I think Drew Hancock is just like probably one of the, it's crazy that he was a first time director, and originally he wasn't even going to direct that movie. Zach Kreger was, until he decided he wanted Weapons to be his next thing. And then Zach was like, Drew, you should direct this. And he stepped up, and it's crazy. You would have think he'd been directing movies for 25 years, like the level of confidence he had, the openness he had to ideas, and especially jumping editors, like probably like, I think it was like 7 weeks into his director's cut, having a totally new person come in. And I love Brett, but him and I are completely different guys. Being a Rhode Islander, I'm pretty easy to hang out with, in a room, whether there's alcohol or an avid, as I'm usually pretty at home. So it's just, it was a little bit of a different vibe shift, but he jumped right into it. He started saying, here's a scene that I don't think there's anything wrong with, but I would love for you to take a crack at it because we have the time, and I'd love to see what someone else thinks about it. And like maybe, 3 out of 6 of those experiments would be valuable and they would end up in the film. Or sometimes it would be like, no, okay, let's stick with what Brett had. It was great. And it's like, yeah, of course, we just want to take a second look at something and get a different idea. And it was like a very weirdly cohesive process, even though Brett and I we were almost never in the same room together. We were never on like competing avids in different rooms. It was just he had to step out and have his kids, and I came in, and then when he came back, I hung out on the couch behind him for a week while we locked. But the movie never really feels like it's like any sort of competing influence. I think it feels really cohesive, and I think that's just a result of Brett and I like the same movies, and we like the same things about this movie. But we never thought about it as though she was just like a robot. It's like, oh, it's a robot, who cares? It's like, I want you to feel bad when she's assaulted by Rupert Friend. Like that's right. The whole movie hinges upon that. So we definitely treated her like a full-fledged character. And I'm not necessarily for AI, but I am for Iris. I'm for her. I think she deserves a story to tell.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and tell you what I loved about it. First of all, the tone and the balancing of everything. My emotions were going all over the place during that movie, right? Like the moment I actually almost got taken out of like, this is so fucking good. I was cracking up at the deputy, like speaking German and giving the directions or whatever. And then 2 seconds later, I'm like, oh my God, like it was the most brutal beating,
Mm.
spoiler alert, but I was like emotionally affected. The saddest, I felt so sad when she's first tied up and he's like explaining everything to her and she's like putting it all together. Like I felt so much for that character. And I think I don't know if it got enough credit for the same things that The Substance got, which is like a genre movie that represents the human experience that women have in a lot of different ways and what they feel and being used and things like that. Um, but the editing of it, especially like, oh my God, the it's so efficient. It's so great. The question and answer cuts are brilliant. Kugler is actually one that told me, like he saw it before I did, and he's like, bro, that movie's hilarious. He's like like the way you play with her going to sleep and waking up, and it's in this like random moment, and in the bed with him or whatever is so good. But the giving of the information throughout that movie, and I know it's in the script, but holding on the characters after that little line of like, oh, I could be replaced, and then there's that
Mm.
little extra look at the end, or the lines would always be there, but the craftsmanship and precision that you put, like every frame is telling me a story and has a purpose in it. And I was just like, I almost got taken out of the movie because I was so impressed by by what was happening as I was watching it. But I've that's it. I could go on and on, but really just brilliant stuff, man.
Well, thank you very much. I will also say, just again, as people that work in the industry, that was a movie where I remember coming home from work and my wife, again, the Rhode Islander in her, she's like, "You don't look stressed. Like you
Mm.
look pretty good." And like Ben Zales, for instance, came over. Like I cooked wings for the entire post crew after the movie had wrapped because we were tired of not seeing each other, every day
Yeah.
for it had been like a month or so after the movie was done. And I was like, just everybody come over. I'm going to grill some wings. And like, all of my friends, wives and girlfriends and husbands coming up to me and saying like every day when he came home or he or she came home, they were happy. Like it never happens like that. There's always some stressful thing. There's always a deadline. There's always somebody who's dropping a wrench in the plans. And Companion was like the absolute antithesis of that. It was just a great experience with like truly incredible creative people. So the fact that anybody enjoyed it and it wasn't just for us to enjoy is a gift in itself. So I'm happy to find anybody who's just discovering it and hasn't had the twist ruined for them and are, still having a good time with it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now, Michael, also, in Sinners, that scene, the music that takes you and through like time travel. What was it like working on that part of the film? Putting that all together.
Yeah, it was a little bit different than what I'm used to because, as an editor, you're sort of a sculptor where they're like, here's this pound of clay,
Mm.
make the best thing you can out of this. Whereas that was very much lots of discussions, lots of rehearsals, lots of stuff. And all the credit in the world to Ryan, for thinking of that and being behind that and making it work, for the movie. The technical aspects were simple in the sense where, it's going to be a oneer, but I think there were 5 shots that we stitched together and planned out. And, whenever we had something like that, or we had the twins, I was on set more than I usually am for movies.
Mhm.
And so helping choose a hero take, helping choose things. And then, when you get to the editing room, you may flip it out. But that actual scene, it's interesting because the editing work on that actual scene was very much like I was carrying a this precious glass statue, and it was just my job to
Mm.
deliver it in a way that wasn't going to break it, right? And so there were parts where I would do a little speed ramp, work with music, constantly talking to music. Okay, can I speed this up a little bit? Is it going to break the song? Working with VFX to add certain looks to it, timing to it. One of my proudest accomplishments on that movie was, everybody in that scene has an ancestor. And we pull back before we reveal Remick, everybody's dancing with their own ancestor, but Cornbread is sitting outside by himself. And so I was like, is there any way we can get cornbread and an ancestor? So if you watch the movie, there's a guy dancing next to him that's one of his ancestors, like a security
Mm.
doorman kind of thing. But actually, in terms of editing in the movie as a whole, the thing of our biggest job with that scene was making it the most digestible for the audience, because the movie originally started with Remick showing up, killing the couple in the house, and then we meet all the characters, and then we go on. And through test screenings and figuring it out, we were, there's the big thing in editing where you sort of have to teach the audience how to watch the movie they're about to watch or they're starting to watch. And if it's a horror movie, you got to scare them or you got to set the tone. If it's a comedy, you've got to make them laugh, right? If it's a boxing movie, you got to have a boxing match or someone getting in a fight or something. And so when we were testing it, we got to that point in the movie, and there's already an inherent level of what the fuckism in that scene. You're like, oh, cool. Wait, is that Bootsy Collins? Is that, what is this? Why is there a DJ there? But there was a handful of people, a percentage, maybe like 20%, give or take, that were like, that scene completely took me out. You guys should just lose that scene. In the traditional filmmaking storytelling, like if it doesn't push the story forward, lose it, kind of thing. But we were never going to do that. So our job was to figure out how do we make this more digestible, and so that's where the idea of, among other ideas, having the prologue in the movie, the opening of the movie with the animation where Annie is talking about music and piercing the veil between life and death and associating music with supernatural. And then we also moved the end to the beginning to frame the whole thing with Sammy, when he goes back to the church. But then when we get to that scene, we cut to flashes of a conversation that we've never seen that he had with Delta Slim. And so we're telling the audience, okay, we're about to go in this kid's head. This may not be real. This may be, it's what they're feeling. They may not be actually appearing. That's up for interpretation. And then replaying Annie's words about their, some, musicians can do this thing and bring the ancestors back to celebrate. And so, piecing that together and guiding the audience to be like, okay, this should exist in the world. This is okay. And there's so much when it comes to editing in terms of the fine line between confusion and intrigue. Like you want to keep the audience engaged and like kind of asking questions and answering them along the way. But if they get pulled out too much, they start to do the math and then lose their dreamlike state and relationship with the movie and engagement. So, a lot of it was actually, and it's what came before that a lot, we changed to make that better, which actually happens a lot in notes that I've got where I know a scene is good and works for itself, but it's something 2 scenes before, 3 scenes before that wasn't clear or didn't make sense, that then, filmmaking is a kaleidoscope. One thing changes, everything changes. So, making sure that the breadcrumbing and guiding the audience on that blueprint of emotion and information, allowed them to fully engage in that scene and be taken and transported by that.
Amazing. So both of you guys have just talked about films that I think a lot of people have seen at this point. They're well known and well respected. If you wanted to kind of share with a person, like maybe you're trying to tell them like, oh, this is a good example of like editing that I feel fully represents me. Is there a film in your, filmography that you would say that's the one I would want to showcase to a person if I'm trying to get them familiar with my editing style, or a film that I feel like particularly like it represents me?
I don't know. No, I mean, I feel like I've been really lucky to work on, I had a film with Joe Begas called Bliss, which is basically just like a blood-soaked heavy metal drug trip through, all the dive bars that we hung out in LA. But also it's so fast paced. It's so aggressive and in your face. And at the same time, I worked on a film like probably about a year or two after that called The Standoff at Sparrow Creek with this director, Henry Dunham, whom I love. And that's a very quiet master shot, very like written film where like everything was not discovered on set. That was like very, shot to a T. And I would say both of those are such wide swaths, working with Oz Perkins on Gretel and Hansel, where I love that movie for how slow and atmospheric it is. I feel like, yeah, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but like to edit a film, you have to fall in love with it. So I feel like we would just say all of it. You know what I mean?
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely. And it's funny for me personally. I can look back, at these movies, and there's always some sort of association with who I was at the time. Every movie that I've done, and it starts from the script phase. You read a script and you decide, okay, for me, it's can I bring something to the movie, but also can the movie do something, for me? And when I go by those standards, I learn and I grow through the characters in a lot of ways. Um, I mean, that's such a tough question, for exactly that same reason, Josh. I would say as hard, like I mean, I love A Quiet Place too a lot. For a lot of reasons. Before Sinners, I would say Creed was probably the best movie I'd worked on. And I think the as someone who really loves certain movies and movies from my childhood, like Rocky, and being able to encompass those similar emotions, honor those movies from the past, even as crazy as they go with robot butlers and
Yeah.
training in Siberia. Bringing it to a new place and grounding it and having it some sort of reality and saying, look, you can do something, because that was our first studio movie. So a lot of that was we were trying to prove our own names, in that and trusting in each other and things like that. But I gotta say, Abigail has a special place in my heart because I think that the places that it goes, Sinners goes to a lot of similar places, but it was my first time doing the balance of horror and comedy and understanding, and with the ensemble, like I could relate to all of these different characters that were in this house and treating them in a real sense of putting myself in their shoes allowed me to kind of exercise each side of me and what I would think about the situation that they were in. And honestly, if it weren't for that movie and what I learned on that movie, I don't think Sinners the editing would be as successful. And I would say in terms of genre and horror and I'd be interested to hear with Josh like how you handle certain things like this with building tension and jump scares and stuff. But you know, um, engaging the audience in one direction, building up tension, and then hitting with a jump scare, and then doing the same thing, but then hitting with a joke and breaking tension that way, and then doing this and really not overly controlling what like because you can't force an edit. It's got to feel like organic and natural, but sort of guiding with confidence and the people actually responding to it is one of the greatest feelings in the world. Like sitting in a test screening and having people jump or yell at the screen or laugh that is the reward, for me, and I think for a lot of editors. And so, a lot of that I took and I brought because Ryan hadn't had experience in genre stuff, and the other thing too, and this was kind of crazy. When I met with Radio Silence, great, just unbelievable people. But they said, we work 9 to 5 and then we go home. And I'm like, what? How do you finish a movie that way? That's crazy to me. And they're like, no, we go in at 9, we have our notes, we'll watch the cut at home at night, but we want people to have a life, and it was the first movie I ever remember leaving the office and the sun was still out. And I was like, what is this? And it was so great. And it showed me, much like in a similar way that Josh was saying, having a team where you truly enjoyed and you were not stressed and you were all on the same team and on the same wavelength and the personalities are melding. Like it proved to me that it is possible,
Yeah.
And I had a similar situation with them, having a great situation, but also like, oh, we can have work-life balance. I can leave here at 5 o'clock some days and go see my son's Little League game. Like it's something that I think everybody in this industry, and I could be wrong, but I've felt many times this feeling of, even though it's my choice and I love what I do, where there's a sacrifice you make for the real life and spending time with people or the amount of haircuts that I've canceled because I had to like work and I was like, you know what, I'll just let my hair grow. You know what I mean? I don't know if you're the same way, Josh, with the haircuts, but
My hair is so long right now. I really gotta get in there.
oh yeah, but I think, you know, that was an achievement, you know, for so many reasons. And you know, it didn't do great at the box office. I think that was a marketing issue, but like you know, I'm so insanely proud. And then, you know, I'm sure you may have seen some stuff like this with Companion where people who just stumble upon it and don't know the movie and they're like, oh, this looks interesting. Let me check this out. And then you see them respond to it like, oh my God, I just watched it. I didn't know that was so cool. Like this movie is great. And I tell everybody to watch it. And, you know, that's amazing. You know, that's part of, you know, I like to think that's a part of the legacy that we're putting out there for, you know, for movies.
Absolutely.
What's ridiculous about that too is just that both of us are still generally pretty young. Like I was Adam Greenberg passed away like a couple weeks ago, who shot T2 and Terminator for Cameron. And I remember like looking him up because I had always been a big fan of his work, you know, especially as a huge Terminator fan. But then I looked it up. I was like, oh, we met Cameron when he was like 50. And you know, so like guys like Mike and I, we still got another 10 or 12 years to find a Cameron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we could. So there's all that stuff to look forward to, and all the stuff that's already behind us. And it's like it's just an incentive to just start doing what you love early and do it.
Yeah, for sure. Michael, you're mentioning how Abigail is underrated, and I think Brandon and I both agree. That was one that we were kind of shocked at. You know how quickly that kind of like wasn't being talked about anymore because we both really enjoyed that film and it kind of surprised us both. I remember us connecting after seeing it separately and being like, wow, that actually was like I really enjoyed that. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy that. Josh, one of the films that you worked on that I would say is pretty underrated and super New England is VFW because I don't know if VFWs exist the way they exist in like or workmen's clubs the way they do in our area, but like watching that film, I was like,
the Elks Lodge.
Yeah, I know. Like
we had one in Coventry that was just called the Coventry Men's Club.
Yeah,
I went to so many birthday parties there. Birthday parties, christenings. Like,
It's a Portuguese workmen's club, it's an Italian workmen's club down the road from me. Like I mean, VFW and places like that are just like staples around here in New England. And I absolutely loved that film. I loved the pacing of it. I loved the mix of like, you know, it had some elements of comedy, had some elements of action and horror and all that stuff. I always tell people like that's one of the films that you and Joe worked on together that I like. That's one of the first ones I usually will recommend before I, you know, list all the other ones. I just think it's a super fun movie and very representative of, you know, filmmakers who came from this area. So just want to shout that one out.
Also, added bonus to have the editor of the film also be like a mini boss. So like having a scene where I get to fight Stephen Lang and Marty Clove.
There
you go. Fred Williamson. And like, I remember it was the scene, it was the shot where, you know, Sadler comes at me with a spiked bat. And, you know, I've been a Bill Sadler fan all of my life. And just the way that he was like, oh, when you swing and you give me the punch, I'm going to spit the smoke up because he always had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth in the movie. And watching him do take after take to get the timing right and also flail the spiked bat at the same time and just being that up close and personal with those actors, those incredible actors. And it was just like, this is such, and then throwing it all away as soon as you get in the editing room. Like, Sadler, I will cut a line if you don't, you know. So just, you know, that's such a weird balance. People always ask like, oh, is being on set, does that affect you in editing? And I'm like, no, Josh in the editing room is not Josh on set.
Yeah.
So never the twain shall cross. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy to be like, you should get this shot, and then be in the editing room and go, we don't need it. We don't need it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, you know, you've stepped into many roles in certain films you worked on. And Michael, you said there's a project that no one's ever going to see because of that, you know.
We're going to get it. We're going to find out.
Yeah, we got to get it out there. We got to get it out there. So I think it's really cool, you know, when you guys step in front of the camera and stuff like that because it shows people a different side of you. So Michael, please send that video over. Check it out.
We need it.
The only thing I've ever in since then has been my voice is in Creed at one if somebody walks by Creed and says good luck, the background guy didn't say anything, and we thought we needed like it could be funny, and so we were at Skywalker Ranch, and Ryan's like, "Do you want to do it?" And that's it. Of course, my dad tells everybody that I'm in Creed. And people are like, "I didn't see you. I looked for you. I couldn't see you. What were you?" I'm like,
I mean, did you get the SAG residuals though? Because that's where the money is those residuals.
I don't know if it was all above board or not, but we'll see.
I get a check like every 6 months for like 34 cents, and I'm like, yeah.
It's amazing. Hey, so could you guys let our viewers and listeners know if you are on social media, where they can find you, and if either of you have any upcoming projects that you want to share with people, just to kind of be on the lookout for, if you can talk about it, that is.
Yeah, I think I'm only on Instagram. Michael P. Shawver is my thing. I don't post too much, but I've really enjoyed the engagement especially since Sinners, and the life that's sort of taken in the dialogue and fan art and stories and everything. So, that's been really cool. And then right now I'm on a reimagining of the Thomas Crown Affair, directed by and starring Michael B. Jordan. And so I worked with him I did some work on Creed 3 towards the end, which he directed. They're just wrapping now. It doesn't come out till like 2027, but it's gonna be fun. Heist movie, cool stuff. Kendall Branagh's in it. Like, let's go.
Awesome. And you're about to get your YouTube channel started, so we can share that film as well. Your early film.
Thinking about me.
I don't know.
I think we got him. I think we got him.
No, well, I mean, it's mostly because I'm afraid to put it in again. But I have thought about having like a screening, but charging people like $20 a person or more, because I know I'm gonna hear shit anyway about it. So I might as well, turn a little bit of a pop.
We can make that happen for you.
I was just gonna say, bring it to Rhode Island. You got a built-in audience here.
I was 23 and I played a hitman. Like that.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
I said too much. Josh?
Oh, wait a minute. Was that the one that Ambrosino directed?
No. Different crew. Did he do one about a hitman?
Okay, I was gonna say, because he had me editing a short about a hitman like 20 years ago when I was still living in Rhode Island. I was like, oh my God, was that Michael?
No. That wasn't me. No. That went crazy.
And yeah, I'm only on Instagram as well. I think I still have a Twitter account because I didn't want somebody to sign up with my name, but I don't post them there at all. But mine's just Josh Ethier. It's just my name. You'll find me easily. I'm following Mike. And same thing. I don't post all that much. I usually just post in the stories about stuff that's going on at the American Cinematheque mostly, or about movies that I love, because there's enough negative crap on the internet. So I just post about stuff that I love.
Perfect.
And as far as things that I have coming out, I do have a new one with the Boulder Light producers behind Companion. And I can't say much about that one yet. That's not really out there yet. But there should hopefully be some cool news on that soon. And then I just started up on the new Orphan for my friends over at Dark Castle. So I'm really excited for that. That will be cool. So it's looking really fun. It's I will say this, the guy who's shooting it is Maxime Alexandre, who is the guy who shot High Tension and Hills Have Eyes, which was basically a dream to be on an email with him and be like very excited to edit your footage, sir. Awesome. and it looks stellar. So
that's cool.
That's been really cool to see every day.
Awesome. All right. Well, Josh, Michael, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was an absolute pleasure to bring Rhode Island kind of full, back here, to LA guys from Rhode Island talking editing. Very cool. And really looking forward to everything you guys have coming out. You guys are like just top notch. So thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us.
Oh, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back next week with a new episode. So we will see you then. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you later.
Game over.